Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 14th of March, 2022. It's just past 2 o'clock. This is the cabinet meeting of Virgo Council. I will start by saying that it looks like some of us are having difficulties, including me, with Wi-Fi connection today. So if I go down, then I can ask the Deputy Leader, Councillor Liz Burnett, to take over. So hopefully it'll all go smoothly. Can I ask, are there any apologies for absence? See, there are none. I know that Councillor Peter King is also having issues, and therefore he hasn't got his camera on. So, but he's here. Next item.
I am, leader. It's just you can't see me. I promise. If the signal improves, I'll switch it on.
No, that's okay, because I've got the same problem, Peter. I think it's America coming online. Next item is the minutes of the last meeting. Can I have your authority to sign them, please?
Yes, and formally second.
Thank you very much. The next item is a reference from Homes and Safe Communities.
No,
I'm sorry. I'll try to move on to you see declarations of interest, if there are any, but I know that there aren't any. My fault. I do it all the time. I apologize. Okay, I think it's the fact that Wi-Fi is going down. Everybody's, well, I am. Okay. Right. Next item is item 4, is the Task and Finish Group Housing Homelessness Provision within Virgo. It's a reference from the Scrutiny Committee. It does say in the agenda to follow, and everybody's had a copy of that. It says it's relation to, as I said, the housing and homeless provision within the Virgo. It was a Task and Finish Group that the Scrutiny Committee set up. And basically they did, I think, a really good job of this. It also helps, and it has helped in relation to some of the other strategies that we've already agreed in terms of homelessness, etc., and our housing strategy. The key parts of their main report were that the council contributes, that the council continues to hold off-shelf plans in order to develop temporary accommodation, which is really good. That the council builds on and develops the housing first approach towards people who are homeless and vulnerable groups. That the council ensures greater provision for people who are job ready. The council provides further modular accommodation, as it has done in Court Road recently, and that the council ensures greater provision for accommodation for older persons. They also go on to talk about the council undertakes a review of its assets and existing housing. It talks about how the council should investigate at a regional collaborating level, so working with other authorities, as we would do through things like the City Deal or the CJCs. That the council explore the possibility of accelerating the process between planning for new build social housing sites and move in ready for tenants, which I think is particularly applicable. And the council builds on the carbon neutral properties and invest in original stock. So if we're building new houses, we'll be carbon zero, but also look to make our current housing stock better, as we are doing. We consider prioritising local residents during the first phase of allocation of houses, and particularly in rural sites. The council reviews the opportunity of expanding on the one-stop shop provision, and the council develops a land disposal protocol. So the review has also emphasised the need to identify homelessness more effectively, including what are commonly called the hidden homeless, and ones we've been picking up during the pandemic in particular. And they've referred to positive feedback from people who are residing at Court Road development for temporary accommodation for housing. So basically the committee endorsed their findings and the recommendations in the report, and they've referred it to us for consideration and endorsement, which I think we should do. I think the Task and Finish Group was a particularly good one to take on during the pandemic, so I would congratulate them on that work and also endorse that work. And indeed, what they've also suggested is that they be provided to scrutiny an updated report. Clearly, that's something for their own work programme, but it's something clearly that we would also want to be referred to Cabinet for consideration. But as I say, some of the work that they've done has already gone into some of the work that we've already achieved. So what I will do is thank them for the amount of work. Recommend that we endorse the findings and their recommendations, and that indeed we get an updated report in 12 months wherever possible, or the next Cabinet does anyway. Margaret, I'm sorry, you want to come in?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what you've said. I'd like to thank the task force for this work. It's a big report and they've worked hard on it. And I agree with all their recommendations, and I'm sure everybody else will. But yeah, I'd like to do that. Please thank them for the work they've done.
Indeed, thank you, Margaret, because I know that one of the other things that they talked about was the Welsh Government hardship funding, and the fact that
Right.
Local housing, the Welsh Government has funded all the hotel accommodations for last year, and they confirmed they'll do the same thing for next year. Obviously, yeah. There may be a 6 months break clause, but obviously that's something which we need to accept and accept as the fact of the situation. But clearly, the report is what we're looking at today. So, yeah. Can I'll move those recommendations? I think Margaret was just seconding them. I don't have anybody else comments.
No, that's fine.
No. Okay, thank you. The next item is a report on the Vale Glamorgan Public Service Board draft wellbeing assessment. The purpose of the report is to seek the endorsement of Cabinet. As you probably know, we have a public service board which works with many partners, and the wellbeing assessment is a statutory duty placed on the public service board by the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015, and that wellbeing assessment will be the second one that they've achieved. But the assessment itself must be considered the state of the economic, social, environmental, and cultural wellbeing in the area, and provide an analysis of the state of the well-being for both the area as a whole and for the distinct community areas. The assessment has drawn on a range of national and local data, research and evidence, and analysis of this information is set out in a suite of reports which together form the wellbeing assessment and tell the story of the experiences of the well-being in the Vale Glamorgan. As I said, the wellbeing assessment must be published by the local government election before the local government elections in May, and therefore consultation is undertaken with a number of statutory consultees, and including the designated scrutiny committee for the PSB, which is the Corporate Performance and Resources Committee. And I would remind you that a briefing session on the findings of the wellbeing assessment was held for members in January, and indeed the assessment has been presented to the senior leadership team across the council to provide a context for this. So basically, what we're asking really is that we, as a cabinet, endorse the draft report so that the public service the public service board can actually then publish it before May, and indeed we can take this to their meeting on the 1st of April where it can be considered. So the recommendations are that the cabinet endorses the wellbeing assessment for approval by the public service board on the 1st of April. We note that further minor changes may be needed to the assessment prior to sign off by the PSB and publication, and that the cabinet recognises that the leader as the council representative on the PSB has authority to approve any minor changes if these will not fundamentally change the analysis and conclusions within the assessment. As I said, it's something which has been developed with the population needs assessment. It's considered with the regional partnership board, which is something that social services and health deal with. We've talked to children's commissioner, and indeed they also talk to the younger people. it was out to consultation, and there were some changes which you can see on paragraph 2.17. So I don't know if you want to go into this in any more detail. I can go into it if you wish to, but as I said, there was a lot of consultation. This was the draft one, and it's a reminder that it's an ongoing process anyway, and that obviously there will be feedback to the PSB as things go along. But clearly, it's their report, but it's something which we have a great emphasis and an input into. So without any further ado, I'm going to just move the recommendations 1 to 3 that I've already read out. Any comments, please?
None except to formally second, Leader.
Great, thank you. No, and I say it is a particularly good plan. Next item is to seek Cabinet's approval to the awarding of grants funding to a range of charitable organisations. They are the Glamorgan Voluntary Service. They were awarded funding for 2019 to 21-22. There has been a review, and the council is proposing to increase the allocation for the next 3 years, 22-23 to 24-25, by 2%. This is something that has been agreed with them. And in a similar vein, the CAB was also awarded funding for the same period. Again, there's been discussions, and again, there's a suggestion and a recommendation that that's increased for the next 3 years by 2%. But in addition, the council proposes an additional sum of £30,000, and that's allocated to them for 22-23 to find additional support required for citizens to reflect the current cost of living crisis, and it's going to be massive. And this additional support will be funded from the Welfare Reform Reserve. Again, in a similar way, we work with Mentor Bro Morgannwg, and again, they were awarded funding for 3 years from 2019 to 2023. Again, there's been discussions, and again, it's been agreed that the increase would be 2% for the next 3 years. 5-year agreement, this one, coterminous with their promotion strategy, but there would also be an additional 10k is proposed to be provided to Mentor Bro Morgannwg for 22-23, again this year, next year, to enable a range of additional activities to be piloted during the year. Is quite a straightforward report. We grant fund them, we've had discussions with them. This increases the funding by 2%, which has been agreed with them. And the recommendations are before you on paragraph recommendations 1 to 3, that CAB be granted £887,335 for 22-23, 157,335 in 23-24, and 157,335 in 2024 to 25. That again, the Glamorgan Voluntary Services are awarded £97,441 in 22-23 and 24-25, and that a grant awarded to Mentor Bro Morgannwg in 22-23 be increased to £44,680 and £3,468 and be awarded in the years of 23-24 to 26-27. It's a bit longer than all the others. The delegate authority be granted to the monitoring officer, head of legal and democratic services, in consultation with the head of policy and business transformation, to execute the relevant deeds of grant with all three, the GVS, CAB and Mentor Bro Morgannwg. I'll formally move that. I don't have any, it's a fairly straightforward report really, but figures need to be mentioned. Ben.
Thank you, Leader. And just to note, it's not a formal declaration, but as an observer on the board for Citizens Advice Bureau in Cardiff and Vale, I see firsthand the work that they do. And, you know, this is, of course, support to citizens in the Vale. This isn't some distant donation to a charity. These are core support services, and we're delighted to work with such a trusted partner. So, you know, if it's okay, I'll second this, and I'm delighted we're able to give some assurity of ongoing provision, not just to Citizens Advice, but to the other partners that we work with so closely, to deliver these key services. And in fact, it kind of reflects on what we've already discussed as a council, that our corporate approach needs to involve the community, and delivering services to the public needs to involve the third sector. So I'm very happy to second this, Leader.
Good, thank you very much. I agree. I in my previous life had lots of work dealing with Citizens Advice Bureau, so they do a lot of work, and indeed with the crisis we're going to have in the next year or so, they can have a lot of work to do, I'm afraid. If there's no other, then we've all agreed that, and we'll move on to the next item, which is agenda 7. And this is the Vale of Morgan Council's draft Welsh in Education Strategic Plan 2022 to 2032, so 10-year plan. Say it that way. Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Education, Liz Burnett is taking this one, I think.
Yes, thank you, Leader. If I can just pull my notes up. Yes, the Welsh Government's Welsh in Education Strategy actually places a duty on all local authorities in Wales to increase the proportion of all school year groups that receive their education through the medium of Welsh, and that's particularly increasing the number of learners in year 1, so that's the ones going into primary school to start off with. So the council is required to prepare, consult on and submit a Welsh in Education Strategic Plan, which most of us will hear referred to as the WESP, and that covers a 10-year period from now till 2032. And it had to be submitted no later than 31st of January, which we did with the proviso that we could send in any amendments if that was needed. So it was consulted on between 15th of October up to 10th of December, and it also went to scrutiny committee, and there was a full and in-depth discussion on it there. So the key commitment within the plan for us is the draft proposal to increase the number of year 1 children taught through the medium of Welsh to 24% by 2031-32, and that equates to about 390 year 1 places being made available by the end date, based on the current sort of population projections. I mean, it is a challenging target, but it's sort of in the middle of the range of the targets we've been set by Welsh Government. So as I said, it was very interesting and in-depth consultation, and in fact, there was an element of co-production to the development of the strategic plan through that. As I said, it was submitted by the 31st of January, but it was subject to approval or amendment by Cabinet, which is why it's here today. Obviously, the targets are challenging, as I said, and they will require significant investment over the lifespan of the plan. And that when we're looking at our proposals for the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme, which is what we all have tended to get used to as a 21st Century Schools programme, that the WESP will become an integral part of our discussions on that. So it's fairly straightforward, the recommendation before us today. That's that Cabinet considers the report and approves the 10-year plan submitted to Welsh Government on 31st of January 2022. The plan having been submitted on the basis that Cabinet approval had not been given due to the timescales involved, and with the proviso that any amendments made by Cabinet would be submitted for consideration by Welsh Government, but there were none, so we are now basically ratifying that submission. So I would therefore move, Leader. I think you're muted, Leader.
I've muted myself twice. I took myself off and muted myself out. Thank you. I'll happily second that recommendation. If anybody else has got any comments to make, clearly it's gone in on the 31st, so we're not making any changes. Nope. Okay. In that case, and I'll try not to mute myself again, is agenda item 8 is again from the Deputy Leader. It's a disposal of surplus land at Lancarvan, the old Lancarvan Primary School in Lancarvan.
Yes, thank you, Leader. and this is actually very, I should say, significant today, as I actually spent part of this morning at South Point Primary School, which is now the home of the old Llancarvan Primary School, where the Minister for Education and Welsh Language actually opened the new primary school. And it's a beautiful day and a really super occasion, and the children have settled in incredibly well, and are really enjoying their new environment. But that for us poses it's not a challenge, but it's obviously the building that the former primary school site is now surplus to requirements for the Director of Learning and Skills, and that was from 28th of February when the school formally moved. So in accordance with the council's adopted disposal policy, the Director of Learning and Skills will maintain responsibility for the site in terms of maintenance, security, etc., until the site is sold. Well, again, that is obviously a burden on the council in terms of finances. So we're mindful that that's a cost for a vacant site that could be better utilised in other ways. But also, I have to say that the actual building and grounds itself could be now better utilised for a different function. Any capital receipt that we receive from the disposal of the site would be contributed to the school's investment programme. The report is actually seeking cabinet approval to declare the site surplus to requirements from the education portfolio. The availability of the land has been reported to the council's cross-directorate board, the Insight board, to see if there was any need for it elsewhere. And Llancarvan Community Council and the local service board asset management group will also be advised of the availability of the site before any movement going forward to formally dispose of it. So it might be that Llancarvan Community Council would want to use the building and the site for community uses. I think it's worth noting that it is being disposed of under its current use class, which is D1, which is non-residential institutions, and the main school building is a locally listed building, so it's not formally that sort of grade 1 or grade 2 listed. It's a locally listed one, so therefore demolition would be resisted under both local and national planning policies. So as I said, it's a fairly straightforward process for a building that we no longer have any use for. And the recommendations, there are 5 recommendations actually before you, and I will go through them. So that's recommendation 1, that the unused council-owned land known as Llancarvan Primary School, Llancarvan, be declared surplus to the requirements of the Directorate for Learning and Skills. 2, that the council undertakes a review of the school site in accordance with playing fields, that's brackets community involvement in disposal decisions, Wales Regulations 2015, to determine the classification of the school playing field and progress the disposal of the site in line with the regulations and outcomes of the review. 3, subject to recommendation 2, that delegated authority is granted to the head of finance / section 151 officer to appoint agents to seek their advice in relation to the preferred method of disposal of the surplus land and its value. 4, subject also to recommendation 2, that delegated authority is granted to the head of finance / section 151 officer in consultation with the monitoring officer / head of legal and democratic services and the leader to market the land and to negotiate terms and conditions for the disposal of the surplus land, with the proviso that if Llancarvan Community Council or the local service board asset management group show an interest in the site, that their offer will be considered initially. And 5, subject to recommendation 2, that the monitoring officer, head of legal and democratic services, be authorised to prepare, complete and execute any documentation required to complete the disposal of the land. And I would therefore move.
Okay, fair enough. It's land which is now declared surplus. I say I'll formally second. It's fairly straightforward and gives the opportunity for others to come forward. Okay, next item is item 9, which is again from the deputy leader, and it's draft strategic equality plans for schools.
Yes, indeed, leader. This is the draft schools strategic equality plan, which is attached to Appendix A, is a draft plan that demonstrates how the council can bridge the gap between policies and guidance and turn it into tangible actions. It provides meaningful adherence to the public sector equality duty, because obviously schools are also subject to that, as well as local authority. And the Equality Act itself makes it clear that discrimination is not to be tolerated in society. The development of the draft schools equality strategic, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Draft schools strategic equality plan supports the Vale of Glamorgan Council's strategic equality plan, which is 2020 to 2024, especially equality objective 4, which on us is to help staff know more about equality law and staff and the public to understand the needs of protected groups. And as I mentioned, you know, the Equality Act lists schools as public authorities, so that when schools carry out their public function, they must have due regard to the need to, you know, eliminate unlawful discrimination, etc., as are listed. And then also having due regard for advancing equality involves a whole range of duties that are based on them. The report seeks Cabinet approval for the draft schools strategic equality plan as the basis for consultation, as described in this report. And there's a sort of an indicative time frame for that, in that, you know, it will go to scrutiny, it will go out to schools, it will go forward to the public for consultation before it then comes back. And it says in the report about coming back in May. Well, actually, it's probably going to slip to June, because looking at the timetable for the new administration, they've only got their first cabinet meeting at the end of May. So I think we're probably talking June for that. But what I do know is that having had a meeting with school councils the other day, and then going along to Pencoitra High School, talking to their school council and also their Q&A group, which is their LGBTQ group in the school. They can't wait to get their hands on this and have a look at it, and they were already making suggestions to me about the things that ought to be tweaked or changed, or their views on it. So I really look forward to the views of the young people on this when they get hold of it. So in terms of recommendations for us, it's that Cabinet considers and approves the draft schools strategic equality plan at Appendix A as the basis for consultation as described in this report. That 2, that Cabinet approves the consultation approach and timetable as set out in this report. And 3, that Cabinet refers this report and appendix to Scrutiny Committee, that would be Learning and Culture, as part of the programme of consultation. And I would therefore move.
Okay, can I make a slight amendment, and that's in 2, where it talks about I call it an indicative timetable, because on the basis that what you said, I agree, it's never going to come back to May. It probably will be June. So if we make that slight tweak, just for people to realise it's only an indicative timetable, I think that'd be sensible. And simply to make sure this is accurate rather than anything else. Nobody can pick it up and say you expected it to come back in May, but as you say, I think the annual meeting of the next council is not until 24th, 26th of May or whatever, somewhere around there. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And as you say, it'll be interesting to see what the younger people and the pupils and the school councils come back with too. Good. Okay. Any comments from anybody? No. No. Gosh, that's good. Next item is item 10, again from the deputy leader, in relation to something which is pretty hot off the blocks, really, the Barry Growth Programme. I'll leave to you with this, please.
So I've got more bits of paper to juggle here, if you can just bear with me, and so I don't obliterate being able to mute myself. So yes, we've been working on this proposal for a number of years, and there was this thing called a pandemic that sort of got in the way. And more recently, consultants Rothwell have been specifically commissioned to support the council in preparing the Barry Growth Programme that's before you today. The programme has an ambitious vision and narrative for Barry, and it's a spatial master plan and a 10-year investment plan. And I think that you know, when we talked about the growth and investment fund at the last cabinet meeting, you can start to see how these two proposals work together. Appendix A gives a high-level initial outline of the emerging evidence and narrative for early consideration, and they've both been shared with the local stakeholders on the Barry Place Board and also the Barry Town Council leader, and received positive feedback. The programme will identify a range of sustainable regeneration, investment and development opportunities that can be realistically delivered over the next decade. I mean, we know things we'd like to do, but we want to look at things that are realistic. And it includes town centres, waterfront, docks, an island, along with the enterprise zone towards Cardiff Airport. And the focus is firmly on improving equality, prosperity and economic growth potential for all communities in, and therefore by implication around Barry, the Vale of Glamorgan and beyond. The programme will be delivered alongside, as I mentioned, the investment and growth fund that was agreed by Cabinet at the last meeting. However, we cannot ignore the opportunity for possible external funding, and this is a key reason why this report is with us today. In February, UK government published their Levelling Up white paper, and it's expected that the bidding round for that fund will open in early spring 2022. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund will follow in the first half of 2022, and the detailed criteria and technical advice for both funding programmes has yet to be released. I mean, we're aware that support from the local MP is a factor in achieving funding, and so obviously our proposals have also been shared with him. We had hoped to bring this report to Cabinet alongside the full guidance, but that's not been possible because it may be that the Council will need to move quickly to submit bids before a new administration is fully established. The proposals have been shared with the leaders of political groups within the Council prior to coming to Cabinet. Building on the existing £100 million pipeline of local infrastructure projects that are currently in development, the Council's identified 3 initial project opportunities that we feel will act as a catalyst for regeneration around Barry waterfront and connect it to town centre, as well as delivering improvements to the overall physical environment around the waterfront alongside the creation of quality jobs. The first project is linked to the Barry Docks waterfront, that's the west side of it, so the development of a marina with associated infrastructure and commercial and employment uses. Cabinet will be aware that we were undertaking research into the feasibility of the marina a number of years ago before the pandemic hit, and I'm aware that my predecessor had also been looking into proposals actually pre-2019. Our discussions with ABP, the landowners and operators of the docks, have been extremely positive today, I think it's fair to say. The second project involves the delivery of new employment land near to the waterfront, comprising supporting infrastructure for the development of high quality sustainable office and light industrial space. It's essential that we have space for small local businesses as well as larger units for when they grow, because that is a little bit of an issue for us in helping businesses to find premises for when they grow. And the third project includes the delivery of new community and leisure space on land adjacent to the docks. The key aim of linking the town centre with the waterfront and of improved sustainable and active transport adjacent to Barry Docks that builds on planned transport investments has always been fundamental to our aims. And all projects will also work towards reducing carbon impacts. These projects will also complement the previously successful community renewal fund where we received over £1 million, and over £400,000 of that will enable a shift towards more people working closer to home, revitalising communities, protecting our environment and strengthening the local economy. And as I mentioned in Appendix A, there's actually a very useful chart which actually talks about how we want to tackle inequality, drive future sectors of job, skill and growth, address the issues around population change and lead on decarbonisation. Going back, just in summary, to the work of the Barry Place Board, which has included stakeholders from across the town, and has done the work about Barry making waves. In one of that, it talks about from coal to climate championing, and I think that is one thing that we will find that comes out of this that is very important for the town. So there are 5 recommendations before us again today, and again I will go through them because we will be needing to use the urgency procedure. But the recommendation 1 is that Cabinet notes and endorses the emerging findings and initial proposals within the Barry Growth Programme. 2, that authority be granted to the monitoring officer, head of legal and democratic services, to enter into agreements with relevant landowners and partner organisations to enable the development of a Vale of Glamorgan Council application for a package bid of projects within the Barry Growth Programme to be submitted to the UK Levelling Up Fund. 3, that authority be granted to the head of regeneration and planning in consultation with the chief executive and leader and deputy leader as cabinet member for education and regeneration, and subject to the approval of the Barry Regeneration Project Board, to submit a grant application and associated funding packages, including match funding from sources identified for regeneration purposes, for a Levelling Up Fund package bid of up to 3 projects on behalf of the Vale of Glamorgan Council. 4, that authority be granted to the head of regeneration and planning in consultation with the chief executive and leader and deputy leader as cabinet member for education and regeneration, subject to the approval of the Barry Regeneration Project Board, to submit an investment plan linked to the UK Government Shared Prosperity Fund on behalf of the Vale of Glamorgan Council. And finally, number 5, that the use of the urgent decision procedure as set out in section 1414 of the Council's Constitution be exercised in advance of Levelling Up Fund rounds opening in the spring of 2022. And that's so that we have the necessary permissions to be able to submit a first wave of projects within the Barry Growth Programme. So I think it's quite an exciting proposal, and with those recommendations I would so move.
Thank you, Liz. I think you covered it extremely well. I think it's important that we get our act together, and I think 1414 is definitely the way forward, because if we have to make some bids early, it says the spring, but the spring could be anything from March, April, May, and even, well, hopefully before June. But It could clearly come while we're either in the period or before the new administration is set up. So I think it's obvious, and the fact that this is something which is now the Levelling Up Fund, which has been promoted, and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which, as I've been told on several occasions by the Secretary of State and others, that this is that Wales will get not a penny less than we had previously from the EU, because now we're not in the EU. That funding is dried up, and this is supposed to be replacing that. But this is clearly a process where it's subject to bids. So unless we get our bids in, then we're not going to get that money, and we have to make sure that we are in the right place in order to get it. So I think this is it's an excellent report, and I think we need to make sure that the regeneration continues, and this is an excellent way of going forward. So I'm really, really pleased that that we've been able to bring this now, and that we'll be able to move forward quickly. I don't know if anybody else got any comments to make, but I think it's an excellent report, and hopefully our bids will be successful. But we can only try. Unless you don't, as somebody once said to me, if you don't try, you don't get. So you're only in it if you're in it. Okay, thank you. The next item is item 11, again from the Deputy Leader, in relation to the Virgo Morgan Business Startup Bursaries, which were again so successful previously. Liz.
Thank you, Leader. I said just juggling my papers electronically. Yes, this is coming before you today to seek approval to establish a fourth round of the Council's business startup bursaries. There have been three previous rounds. I think the first one was in 2006, and over those 3 rounds, 75 new businesses were established. The first 2 rounds were predominantly funded by rural regeneration funding, and were restricted to Western Vale. The third round was Vale wide, but was also for 18 to 30-year-olds. And actually, I think it was slightly over 30 successful bids that we had then, and absolutely super to still see some of those businesses doing very, very well around the Vale. As a result of COVID, we'd had been looking at another round of bursaries, but I think it's fair to say that an awful lot of people have been sort of reviewing their lives, looking at what is possible, looking at maybe a change, and so it's been decided that we'll use the same model in terms of funding, grant funding alongside mentoring support, which has actually worked so well in the past. But then we'll take the age criteria out of it, because we know that people in the Vale, if we're blunt, that are sparky and entrepreneurial, and with lots of good ideas. So I said this is going to be open to anyone in the Vale, and who can submit applications. And at the moment we've got just over £200,000. That's 159,000 that we've been able to identify within the council, and £60,000 from the Waterloo Foundation, who have partnered with us in previous rounds and have been hugely supportive and also very, very constructive within the appraisal processes for the people applying. The intention, whereas before we've had grants of up to about £3,000, which is I think 75–80% of the total amount of money they need for setting up a business, we will be looking to up that because of some of the other cost pressures, if possible up to about £5,000 and to about 80% of the total startup costs. But we're bringing it here today so that officers can go and start work on it, and we want to allow people to make applications as soon as they possibly can. So it's fairly simple recommendations before you on this one, and that's firstly that authority be granted to the head of regeneration and planning in consultation with the deputy leader and cabinet member for regeneration and education to agree the final guidance and assessment process for the Vale Business Startup Bursary Scheme, and two, that the use of the urgent decision procedure as set out in section 1414 of the Council's Constitution be exercised to enable the scheme to be launched in March in readiness for the new financial year, as we'd like people to be able to apply as soon as they possibly can. So on that note, I'd so move, Leader.
Thank you very much, and I'm really happy to second. And just in case people are just wondering why we want to use 1414, is that that's the urgency provision, is because we want to start it in March. So now if we can, but definitely by April, beginning of April, which is before the new administration comes in. But so just get on with it. But the other thing is that the reason that we haven't been able to do it before is because many of our staff who will be dealing with this have also been dealing with all the many other grants that have been coming in to businesses and individuals within the Vale. So they've been working at the pace. Things have started to slack off a little, but this then is an opportunity for us to continue with that. So I think that's the reason. I think it's justifiable to explain why we're doing it now. Because we only have a limited number of staff who could do it, and they've been working their socks off, in fairness, and I got to thank them for the amount of work that they've done, and I apologise for giving them more work as soon as things have got a little easier, but there you go. I'm happy to second it. Thank you for that. I don't know if anybody else got any comments. I think it's an excellent report. Good. In that case, we'll move on. The next item is the excuse me, is the housing support grant delivery plan for 22-25, and it's asking us to adopt the draft housing grant delivery plan and seek authorisation for its submission to Welsh Government, which has to be in by the 31st of March to 2020. And clearly the grant is something which encompasses some of the 3 other grants which are covered within the report. Margaret, I think you're taking this, please.
Thank you, Leader. The Housing Support Grant Programme is the policy and funding framework for delivering housing-related support to vulnerable people in different types of accommodation all across the tenancy. At the local level, the programme takes forward a number of strategy aims reflecting community safety, health and social care and wellbeing objectives. It aims to deliver high quality and structural planned housing relation support services that cost effective. There is lots of little grants, but these main ones have to be sent to the Welsh Government by the end of this month. But in accordance with the Welsh Government guidance for the housing support grant, all local authorities are requested to develop a 3-year local delivery plan, which must be submitted to the Welsh Government by the 31st of March 2022. The delivery plan outlines annual needs mapping, and we have carried out supporting people team identifies the 3 main areas of the need as following: people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, people expecting mental health issues, people expecting domestic abuse. So we have to get these grants approved. And then there is the mapping of other developments. The development plan identifies 4 housing support services due to expire in 22-23. And they are the Older People Service, the Discipline Refuge Service, the Community Mental Health Floating Service, and the Poverty Action Group Service. So we need to get that done as well. Based on needs mapping as well, the following commission priorities for the following new services over the next year complex needs hostel, 24-hour mental health support accommodation, learning disability support accommodation, second stage refuge accommodation. So it's a good report, but we must get it in as soon as possible. There is 4 recommendations, but can I make a 5th one, please? That the use of the urgent decision process set out of section 1414 of the council's constitution exercised to allow submission to the Welsh Government by the 31st of March. So can I move those 5 recommendations, that extra one as well, please?
Yes, thank you, Margaret. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We do have to get this in by the 31st of March. It does, as you said, consolidates some of the other reports, but it's clear the way we need to vote forward. And the recommendations are 4 recommendations plus the 5th urgency procedure is before you, and I'm happy to second. I don't know if anybody else wants to make any comments at this stage. No. In that case, thank you. In that case, we'll move forward. The item 13 is closed circuit television service, the future arrangements. And this is Councillor Eddie Williams, I think, is taking this one, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. As I say, this reports to provide an update on the current CCC service and to seek approval for a number of service changes. If you look at the report, the executive summary is quite comprehensive, and I suppose it needs to be to cover the range of factors involved. Officers from the council seat system at the moment is currently managed by Bridgend County Borough Council under the contract, and this has been extended, but expires 31st of March, the end of this month. Officers from the council's community safety team undertook a review of closed circuit television, which was concluded in July 2019. Class of the review, and the review concluded that CCTV is a not statutory responsibility of the local authority, costs the council more than £90,000 a year for a provision that is outdated and no longer fit for purpose. A number of our current cameras are not working due to outdated technology, and in some cases an inability to source spare parts. The review also concluded that South Wales Police are the main users of the CCTV system, which prompted a series of discussions with South Wales Police to agree a way forward for the CCTV in Vale Glamorgan, and that embraced a collaborative approach, given the local authority's commitment to partnership working, and providing the Vale Glamorgan residents with a service that will improve their security and feeling of safety. During the same time frame, a parallel drive by the Police and Crime Commissioner was instigated to review CCTV across the whole of South Wales Police Force area, with the aspiration of implementing consistent service across the board. This prompted a series of discussions with the PCC regarding a partnership model for the future of CCTV, whereby the local authority would invest in the upgrade of the cameras and monitoring equipment, and the PCC would invest in the ongoing revenue implications of monitoring cameras. A condition of revenue funding from the PCC for the monitoring of the cameras is that the Vale CCTV service evidences a collaborative approach with Cardiff. And to this end, Cabinet approval has been sought for the Council to enter into an inter-authority agreement with Cardiff Council for the monitoring of the Vale CCTV system. The rationale behind this new collaboration and a move away from Bridgend County Borough Council, with whom the current contract will terminate at the end of this month, is to mirror the new South Wales Police basic command unit footprint. A change in this footprint now has the Vale merged with Cardiff instead of Bridgend. A budget of £348,000 is approved in the 21-22 capital programme. Prior to proceeding with this upgrade, Prior to proceeding with the upgrade of the system, the council required commitment from the PCC that the revenue costs to cover the monitoring system would be met. Indicative confirmation of an agreement to fund the 24/7 monitoring of 45 static cameras across the Vale was received in January, and it was confirmed that this commitment would be sourced from baseline PCC funding. A further business case has been submitted to the PCC with a scope of funding to extend 24/7 monitoring of the total 82 cameras being upgraded and installed across the Vale of Glamorgan. The initial commitment to the 19th of January enabled the Vale of Glamorgan Council to proceed with a CCTV programme, and due to timescales, emergency powers and a financial waiver were obtained to progress the order of the new cameras and associated equipment. In terms of the future monitoring of the Vale CCTV system, Bridgend County Borough Council is upgrading its current CCTV system, and the upgrade control room will be live from April 2022. Significant investment, which would have to be resourced by the Vale, is likely to be required to make the Vale's existing equipment compatible with the new system in Bridgend. And further, the PCC funding for camera monitoring is conditional on the CCTV partnership mirroring the current police BCU footprint. Cardiff Council is also progressing with an upgrade of its control centres, where its two existing control rooms will be merged into a new purpose-built suite, which is expected to be operational in December 2022. It is proposed that Cabinet approve a low-cost interim monitoring solution to be installed into the civic offices from April 2022 to June 2022. And following this, it is proposed that the monitoring of the cameras moves to the existing Cardiff control room, where they will remain until the whole system is ready to move in December 2022. Quite a big introduction there, but throughout the report, it goes into some of the background and the history of where we are with the actual CCTV system and the justifications for moving from Bridgend to Cardiff. Clearly, it's the footprint is a key issue. We've had some incidents in the Vale of Glamorgan, recognising that the Vale of Glamorgan is a safe place to live. We've had some instances in the recent year, so which we would prefer to have been able to get more data from. So that's certainly a case for this upgrade. And if you look through the report, it goes into looking at the key considerations about the upgrade itself, the money set aside. We've set it up into two different phases. We've got phase one, where the equipment's been purchased, and then there's phase two installation. I've already mentioned in the executive summary about the contributions that's been made. There's been money set aside. We've agreed that earlier in the year, and also the reason for 14 approval is that the timescales that some of the funds would have to be used by. The benefits of this particular scheme that we're going for is that, in particular, is the future monitoring will be 24/7, and it's the police that will be undertaking that. And also in the report it talks about, although we'll have a temporary couple of months in the civic monitoring, it will in time have the main suite in Cardiff, but we'll also have a monitoring room in Barry where we can have local checks on how that goes, and that will certainly provide much better data and response time for dealing with any incidents that happen. I think I've said enough on the report, so if I just go to the recommendations. Here we go. There are 6 here, and so what I'm asking for the recommendations is that Cabinet notes the position of the CCTV system upgrade programme, and that the current CCTV monitoring arrangement of Bridgend County Council terminates on the 31st of March 2022. The Cabinet agrees to proposals for collaborative working with Cardiff Council and the Police and Crime Commissioner as set out in the executive summary. The Cabinet agree a temporary CCTV monitoring solution from April 2022 to be sited in the civic offices until June 2022, and that ensures the continuity of CCTV service throughout the various upgrade stages. 4, the Cabinet provides delegated authority to the Director of Environment and Housing Services and Monitoring Officer, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Band Services, to enter into an agreement arrangement with Cardiff Council in respect of the monitoring of the CCTV system in the Vale of Glamorgan, and also into an agreement with the PCC in respect of funding of such monitoring. 5, that the Monitoring Officer, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, be granted authority to prepare, negotiate, execute and complete all legal documentation required in connection with the proposed arrangements detailed in the above recommendations. And 6, that the use of urgent decision procedure set out in section 1414 of the Council's Constitution be exercised, as the existing contract with Bridgend County Borough Council expires on the 31st of March 2022. So I so move, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Eddie. I think it's been a long time in awaiting this report, because clearly, we put money in there for the capital, for the equipment, and I'm really pleased that the Police and Crime Commissioner has now agreed that they will be funding the monitoring, and obviously it does make sense that it's with the BCU in Cardiff, as that's now changed since the last time we did it, because it was the basic command unit was incorporated with Bridgend previously, and if it's a condition that we get the money if we go with the BCU, makes sense anyway, because let's be honest, the people who use this the most are the police anyway. So I think it's an excellent way forward. And the fact is that if we expire the contract with Bridgend on the 31st of March, we have to use the emergency procedures. So I'm really, really pleased this has eventually come to fruition. And can I thank everybody for the amount of work that's gone into this, because I know this has been on the cards for, I don't know how many years. I dread to think how long, to be honest. And it's obviously going to give us a better system. So I'm really pleased. Thank you very much. I don't know if anybody else got any comments. I know it's caused some issues, and I know that we answered some questions at council last week as well in relation to it. So this will go forward and be very, very helpful. And the fact we have a suite in the civic offices also is going to be preferential. Okay, in that case, we will move forward. Again, this is a report on the Virgo Morgan Replacement Local Development Plan 2021 to 2036. And again, it's a review report again from Eddie, please, the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Leader. I can't overstate this. This is quite a considerable report, but clearly it's something which all residents in the Vale will impact at some stage or other. To recognise that this is just setting up the sort of draft review report and delivery agreement, which goes to start the process for reviewing the replacement local development plan. It's not actually the plan itself. So, but needless to say, if you look at the beginning of the report, you can see, just as you've done with the CCTV, there's a considerable number of stakeholders involved just in just getting this report together, and it affects all the aspects of the council. So the executive summary then, in September 2021, the Cabinet considered and approved the draft review report and the draft delivery agreement for public consultation purposes in its C675 affairs. And this report sets out the findings of the public consultation exercise held between 5th of November 21 and 31st of January 22, together with the proposed amendments to both documents. Cabinet is asked to endorse the changes prior to submitting them to the Welsh Government, and the Council will be required to prepare the replacement local development plan in accordance with the approved delivery agreement in line with the LDP Regulations 2005 as amended. I just want to make it clear though that this is a matter of consideration approved by Cabinet in reference to full Council, a final decision in April 22. I'll come back to the recommendations. There are seven of them. So a bit of background. The current Vale Glamorgan plan, LDP, was adopted in 2017. So as with all these things, they have to be reviewed in time. So as you go through we need to conduct a full review, and that was set off October 20. And the review report forms key parts of the evidence base for the replacement LDP and sets out significant legislative, national and local policy changes that have occurred since 2017. So it's a key point that it's not just an assumption that we can just move on from the previous LDP. We've actually had to look at any changes in that policy, and the legislation to bring this forward. So the first stage in the replacement LDP is the production of a delivery agreement, and it's an essential project management tool which sort of gives a timetable for preparing the LDP, replacement LDP. and together it also identifies the community involvement scheme, which is key to the whole process, making sure that all residents and members and people involved have a chance to contribute to it. The LDP regulations require local planning authorities to make sure that we engage with stakeholders, and that's what this report's about that engagement. So on 27th September 21, we considered and endorsed the Council's draft delivery agreement and draft review report, and that's gone forward, and this report down provides that. Okay. As I said earlier, the agreement to the delivery agreement marks a formal start of the replacement LDP process, and the Council is committed to the timescales consultation process contained with it. And the preparation of the replacement LDP is due formally to commence in May 2022, and therefore it's anticipated it will be adopted in October 2025. Quite a long timescale. It's a major report and major investigation into what the requirements are of the Vale of Glamorgan, so it's quite important that this brings forward. Key considerations: there are documents available in the council offices, and as we know, a lot of it's done online, via email, whatever, but we've opened up many avenues of that consultation. The actual, if I talk about some of the feedback, I'll talk about the review report, the draft review report first. There were a total of 52 stakeholders commented that's on this report. Can I just add that we did have a late rep, so there's one more that's been added to it. And as with all the previous 52 stakeholders, those comments have been noted, and you'll see them in Appendix B of the report. And you'll also see how the council responds to them, those comments, and together with any amendments to the draft review report where appropriate. As you can see from the Appendix B, the majority of respondents agrees that the existing LDP vision, objectives and strategy needs to be reviewed. However, there were mixed opinions on the findings of the policy review and identification of the contextual issues. Most people agree that the LDP review should be undertaken individually as opposed to jointly with an adjoining local authority. It's quite a key element that. Be interesting to see how that pans out in the national context where we had changing regional CJCs and the like. In the consultation, respondents brought out some other matters. They're covered in section 2.3, but generally if you look at 2.4, it will be noted that many comments relate to specific adopted LDP policies and allocations as opposed to the actual draft review report itself and the draft delivery agreement. Matters such as the retention or deletion of existing undeveloped LDP allocations and the identification of new sites will be considered as part of the replacement LDP process in due course. And the letter attached to Appendix D seeks to clarify this and will be sent to all specific and general consultation bodies, respondents to the consultation, and those who have asked to be kept informed on progress of the replacement LDP. Section 2.5 sort of explains, in the light of the consultation's responses, a number of minor changes, including factual updates being proposed to draft review report, as you can see in Appendix C. Okay. 2.6, it's considered that the updated review report contains a clear and robust overview of the issues that need to be considered in the emerging replacement LDP, and there's a need to review the vision and strategy as well as the matters raised in the policy review section of the report. The draft review report concluded that a full revision of the adopted LDP is required, and this remains the conclusion following the consultation process. Okay, so I then move on to the draft delivery agreements. You can see on 2.7 it says there is total of 17 respondents, and they provided the comments, and these are set out in Appendix A. The majority of the comments received were in relation to the community engagement. Most respondents agreed with the general principles for engagement, but there were mixed views on the engagement methods. However, the engagement methods are set out in the draft delivery agreement are regarded as the most effective and efficient forms of engagement for the replacement LDP. There was also some uncertainty regarding when and how people could get involved in the plan preparation process. Nevertheless, it's considered this is clearly set out in Appendix 2 of the draft delivery agreement. Some respondents were unsure whether the delivery agreement defined all the main stages in the replacement LDP process and whether the timetable was realistic and achievable. But these key stages set out in the draft delivery agreement reflect those in the Development Plans Manual, Edition 3, 2020. However, the period for reviewing and updating the evidence base, including ISA and SEA baseline and framework, and the time frame for preparing the candidate site register and undertaking assessments have both been extended to February 24. These revised timescales are more realistic given the resources available and do not result in any change to the anticipated adoption date. 210 gives some other matters that were raised by respondents. Again, there's no significant changes. Both documents contain introductory sections. Just going through here, it should be noted that several of the specific consultation bodies submitted an overarching response, and these are covered by an asterisk if you see look in the actual appendix concerned. So look at 213, you'll see that the next steps are following the endorsement of this updated review report and the delivery agreement by Cabinet and Council. The next step will be to formally submit the documents to the Welsh Government. Approval of the delivery agreement by Welsh Government marks a formal stage of the replacement LDP process, and the Council must adhere to the timetable and consultation process contained with it. So the agreed delivery agreement must be made available for inspection in the Council's Principal Office, Civic Office Barry, during normal office hours, and published on the Council website in accordance with the LDP regulations. So I'll leave residents, members to review that. And if I go back to the recommendations then, that the responses to the representation on the draft delivery agreement and the draft review report, as set out in Appendix A and B, respectively to this report, are considered and referred to Council in April 22 for approval. 2. The proposed changes are set out in Appendix C to this report and endorsed and referred to Council, and the draft delivery agreement and draft review report are updated accordingly. That in pursuance of recommendations 1 and 2, the amended delivery agreement and review report are submitted to Council for consideration and subject to ratification by the Welsh Government for approval. The following Welsh Government approval of the delivery agreement and review report, copies are made available for inspection at the Council's Principal Office during normal office hours and published on the Council's website. 5. The delegated authority be granted to the Head of Regeneration and Planning in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services to make any further typographical or other minor amendments as required by the Welsh Government. 6. The letter attached to Appendix D is sent to all specific and general consultees, respondents to the public consultation, and those who have asked to be kept informed of progress on the replacement LDP. 7. That a further report on the replacement LDP, vision, issues and objectives is prepared and considered by Cabinet in due course. I so move, Leader.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Full and comprehensive report as usual. Obviously, it's got to go on to Council to then go on to the Welsh Government. And just for clarification, in case anybody's wondering, one of the things he talked about was the Council's Principal Office. For the documents are available. That is in fact the civic offices, just for people to be aware that we are using the civic offices for that purpose, for this particular issue, rather than maybe the people they can go to the doc office. So it would be that one. I'm happy to formally second. I don't know if anybody else has got any comments in relation to that or not. Nope. In that case, I will thank you for that. I will go on to the next item, which is item 15. Which is the engineering contract for the direct labour and plant call-off contract 22 to 24. And I'll ask for the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport, Peter King, to take this, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, colleagues. Unlike the last report, which was a substantial document reflecting the culmination of a great deal of work, this is almost the opposite. This is a much smaller report seeking to commence some work. Nevertheless, there are a couple of changes that I would like just to flag up. The report details the tender process required for the design and construction section's direct labour and plant call-off contract, and it's planned to run from 2022 to 2024, and includes the conditions for an extension of a further 12 months on the agreement. And I think it's the fourth bullet point on the report summary. It makes reference to the existing direct labour the call-off contract to be extended for 3 months, and I'm suggesting that we may need to extend that to 6 months, and I'll explain in a moment. I think if you read through the report, you only have to read section paragraph, I think it's 2.2, and it identifies the values involved, and that takes us over one of the delegated powers thresholds, but I don't think it actually spells that out in the report. And therefore, as a consequence, when I fully expect that when the tender documents are returned, that they will return as a further cabinet report somewhere in the summer, under both part 1 and part 2, but I don't think it actually says that explicitly in the report. I think we perhaps rather naively took the view we didn't need to say what was a written rule, but for the avoidance of doubt, I want to make that clear. And as a consequence, just to help that clarification, I would ask you to look at the recommendations. The first one is that I'm seeking you to confirm the approval to procure the direct labour and plant call-off contract 22 to 24 for the provision of direct labour for future highway schemes as referred to in this report. I then ask you to delete the recommendations numbered currently 2 and 3 and renumber the remaining one and change the wording. I will provide this in writing, or I have provided this in writing to our secretary, but I will read out for the record now that Cabinet delegates authority to the Director of Environment and Housing in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport to extend the existing direct labour and plant call-off contract 2019 to 22 for an additional period of up to 6 months, April to October 22, at the tendered rates in order to facilitate the tender process, the standstill period, the evaluation and award of the direct labour and plant call-off contracts 2022 to 24 to ensure no business or delivery continuity is lost. And I do apologise that that's such a late amendment, but hope you can back that, please.
Thank you. Can I ask a further one in that case? And I don't like doing this, but something we've done today is whether or not we need to use Section 1414 of the Constitution in order to have the urgency procedure. If this is an extension of the contract from April, it's for you. If it's an extension from April for 6 months, then clearly it needs to be done fairly urgently. And there's, as my understanding is, there may only be one, possibly an NER this week, maybe tomorrow. But I'm just wondering whether or not we need to use 1414 in order for the director to use its powers to extend the current contract. Because clearly, in terms of the extension contract, that will come back at a later date as a part 1 or part 2 report. But in order for us to continue, I think we probably need 1414, and I don't know if you accept that or whether or not any officers want to make any comments.
While the officers are considering that, Leader, can I say thank you very much indeed. I think that probably would be helpful. I think the director and I were frantically trying to just tidy things up this morning. And I think I was so focused upon what I did change that I didn't think about that. So I will certainly be guided by officers, but I would happily accept that additional recommendation.
Okay, I don't know if I saw the director coming in then, Miles, but if he wants to make any comment, or whether or not Debbie Miles got her hand up, which is the monitoring officer. Debbie, you want to come in, please?
Should I just speak briefly on this? Without having the opportunity to do the maths at this point in time, I think belt and braces, I would entirely agree with you, Leader, to use the urgency decision procedure. At least that sort of covers off the situations that we don't lose that continuity that Councillor King referred to. Yeah,
I think so. I think that's fair. Miles, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I would concur, and just to note that it's for up to 6 months. So as soon as we can get these tenders out and back to you, we will do that.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, okay, up to 6 months, so that if you get the tenders back, it'll be a part 1 and part 2 report. But clearly, that's going to be after May now anyway.
Yeah, I think, Leader, that was what Miles and I were considering, was that it would probably be in time and stay beneath the threshold. But I very much appreciate the advice, and I thank you for your for that further recommendation.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just, you know, we need to make sure we can continue the work. It continues. Okay, good. Thank you very much. There's an item 16, which is any items I decided urgent, and in fact I have decided one is urgent, and it's urgent for the reasons to need to seek endorsement of the direction of travel with regard to the future of the Kim House and Gardens, and the need to progress with community engagement work as outlined in the report which will be presented to you, and to ensure good governance and a decision in a timely manner in relation to the licence arrangements to be continued for the continued operation of the cafe at the Penarth Pier Pavilion. This is a report, an update from Councillor Catherine McCaffer, who's the Cabinet Member for Leisure, Arts and Culture. And again, I think this is something which we really do need to deal with now, so that it gives us an opportunity to continue before the election and gives us a way forward. Catherine, do you want to come in, please?
Thanks very much, Leader. This is one of those reports that is just really, really good to be able to bring to Cabinet, because we're updating Cabinet and the Council in relation to what's happened since we've taken over control of the pavilion, and for everyone else to understand everything else that we are doing in relation to our seafront. So it's really pleasurable to have this report here today. As the Leader's already mentioned, he's given you a brief outline of what's going on. So it's a hugely detailed report about everything that we have achieved since taking over control of the pavilion. I would absolutely urge anyone to read this report just to be able to see, because if I go through everything now, we'll be here for another half an hour, so I better not do that. But I will pull out some highlights for you. There are some recommendations which I'll come back to after I've spoken to the report, because I do need to add one in here today. So essentially, from the local authority's point of view, since we took over control of the pavilion, we've generated an additional income of £70,000 through various events, including obviously the Big Fresh Catering Company working down there, weddings, exhibitions, sales of art that we've had down there. It's really impressive to see. The people I speak to in Penarth have said how much more welcoming and encouraging, and how nice it is for them to be able to use the pavilion easily, to access it simply, and to be able to go in and actually enjoy the space that is there. They've also been heavily involved in promoting the community events that we've had in relation to the Summer of Fun last year from Welsh Government money, and the Winter of Wellbeing is still ongoing now. And it's really encouraging to see the diversity of events that are going on in the building for all age groups, all age ranges, all types of things, from jewellery making to Halloween to journaling courses, so many different things that so many people can get involved in. This report, as the Leader also mentioned, is in relation to the Kimmin and how we can cohesively bring together sort of the ideas that we've had and that are showing to be working in the pavilion towards the Kimmin itself. The Kimmin, as we know, is a house on the side of Beach Road, as you're coming down to Penarth, which has currently been empty for a little while. From the council's point of view, we are investing as we need to make sure that building stays watertight and secure, and to make sure that it's fit for purpose. We have got a great relationship with a couple of local community groups who are already using the grounds of the pavilion, which is really encouraging. From their point of view, it's great to be able to see people outside enjoying gardening, sharing their knowledge and skills with other people. And I know that the events are really well attended. We will have conversations in relation to using the models that we have in the pavilion to make a cohesive brand of the two of them, as it were, so they can work together. just bear with me a second. As I said, it's quite a long report. Yeah, so in relation to the Kimmin, we are moving forward with that. It has the facility to be lots of different things to the community and from a rental point of view in relation to various different conferences and meeting places. And we do have lots of members of the community who are interested in that. The report also talks in relation to the investment that we've made in the Esplanade itself, in relation to how much better the pier looks, the railings look, everything's been renovated there. Got new road surfaces in place, which is brilliant. And the Esplanade extending all the way up to the hill, where we are soon to be able to have fabulous ice cream will be in South Lodge at the top of Cliff Hill. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the designs look like for the historic shelf at the top of the hill, because it was so important for us to make sure that we saved that. The last one that we've got, and we need to make sure that that is protected for the future generations. So in relation to the recommendations that we have, there are currently 5, but I am going to add one in. So currently recommendation 3 states that Cabinet continues to receive annual reports on the community commercial uses of the pavilion. I need recommendation 3 to say instead that delegated authority be granted to the Monitoring Office and the Head of Legal and Democratic Services to execute the licence between the Council and the Big Fresh Catering Company in line with recommendation 2. This then means that recommendations 3, 4 and 5 become 4, 5 and 6. I bring this report to Cabinet today and I hope you can support the recommendations.
Thank you, Catherine. Peter, do you want to come in? And then I think Ben.
Yes, once I unmute myself, yes, please, Leader, thank you. Although it is covered in the report and my colleague, Councillor McCaffer, has alluded to it, I would like to make a comment about the Pier Pavilion. The previous organisation failed to make a financial success of operating the pavilion and frankly ended in a bit of a mess. And we as the landlord it defaulted back to us. And it came to us at the most challenging period of time that you could possibly imagine for any business or organisation. And I just can't think of anything being worse. And yet we have managed to turn things around despite all those restraints of lockdown. And we are reporting that what can only be described as a successful community facility, and one that has produced a financial surplus. I really do want to put my sincere thanks and appreciation to everyone who has helped bring this about. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I echo those sentiments because I know I tried to bail up the previous organisation several times. Ben.
Thank you, Leader, and associate myself with all the points made so far, and I think it's really to examples in Penarth of people seeing action, seeing an area brought back to how it should be, and I think hopefully there's a run of good weather and they can finish off the last of the painting. I've certainly been down there a few times and not like the idea of having to be the one out there painting, so my hat's off to the guys and girls working so hard on that. I think that it's highlighted by Catherine is the range of stuff going on in the pavilion, and I think the assurance has been really key to that being able to move forwards. After it was shared that this report was going to come, I will just highlight something someone in our group has mentioned. Councillor Michael Morgan, who you may or may not know, has a bit of an amateur dramatic flair to his existence, but he says he's doing his bit for the pavilion, appearing in a production by Red Herring at the end of April down there. And from his point of view, in terms of what they've done down there, council should be applauded for their good management of the pavilion. I thought it's important to get a different perspective on it, and not just to plug one production happening at the pavilion, but surely to show that this isn't just about having a coffee shop. Even though we've already highlighted, and perhaps Councillor Burnett's going to do this in terms of how much it's been able to reinvest into, school meals and the young people of the Vale. But it is a community facility that's working really positively, and so I'm really pleased to be able to see this, and if not already done so, happy to second the recommendations on the on this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Lynn, Liz, do you want to come in? Excuse me.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, thank you ever so much, Catherine, for bringing this report to us today. I mean, it's stunning, isn't it? I mean, I can see why you're so pleased with the outcomes of this. And it was interesting that you know, right back at the beginning of taking the pavilion on, and said in the conversations were, well, what do you want it to be? Well, actually, this has got to be of the town. It's got to be buzzing. It's got to be vibrant, and it is. I mean, I've kept a track of the types of things going on, but even I had no idea of some of the stuff that's been going on in the pavilion. You know, it's somewhere that's really lovely to stop off for when you're having a walk around Penarth. The staff in the both in the pavilion and in the cafe are so positive, so constructive. And I think, I mean, Ben said I'm going to say about Big Fresh. Well, yes, of course I am. Last year we delivered a surplus. Big Fresh delivered a surplus of about £500,000 in its first year of trading, which is quite an outcome. And that's been reinvested into our schools. And shortly we'll be reporting the next year's surpluses. And I can't go into that, but I'd probably be very pleased with that as well. And that is on top of paying its way in the pavilion, because I think what some people don't realise is that actually they pay their way as any business, any operator would, and it's by paying its way that the pavilion is on a solid footing. But on top of paying its way, it also reinvests. You know, last year £500,000 back into schools, etc. Really pleased to see that you know, there's going to be more consultation around the Kimin, that things, you know, there are going to be some activities there over the summer to get people used to going back into that much loved venue. But also the proposal is that they should work in partnership, because with the layout there are some things that we can and can't do in the pavilion. There are things that we can and can't do in the Kimin, and hopefully by developing those synergies that will work as well. I think it's a really good report, bodes so well for the future, and thank you for bringing it to Cabinet.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought I'd change my backdrop to have the sunshine of Penarth and concur with you. If everybody's happy with that, we'll accept that as an urgent item. I don't have any other urgent items in terms of part 1, and I don't have any items in terms of part 2. So I will draw this meeting to a close. Thank you for your perseverance. I see Liz has got another backdrop of the pavilion, and we'll probably have to keep on changing them now, just to keep going to show how good it is. So can I thank you for your perseverance? I'll ask Democratic to stop the recording of this, and also the live streaming, which I failed to remind you all would be the case when we started this afternoon. So can I thank you for your